Chosen one. Someone has carried a secret for far longer than anyone realized. A secret that quietly changed the direction of two lives without either of you knowing the real reason. Today, that silence is finally breaking. The person who caused the distance between you and your soulmate can no longer carry the weight of what they have done. Before this message ends, you will understand why everything happened the way it did. And why the truth is finally coming out. Listen carefully. For a long time, you believed fate had simply turned against you. Every time you and your soulmate came close to finding each other, something unexpected pulled you apart. A phone call never arrived. A meeting was suddenly cancelled. A message disappeared before it could be read. New misunderstandings appeared without explanation, and every answer only created more questions. You blamed timing. Your soulmate blamed circumstances. But neither of you knew there was someone quietly standing between both of you, making sure every opportunity slipped away before it could become something real. That person smiled in front of everyone, acted supportive whenever your name was mentioned, and convinced others they only wanted what was best for the family. No one questioned their intentions because they had earned everyone's trust over many years. Yet behind closed doors, they carefully shaped conversations, twisted simple facts, and planted small doubts that slowly became walls impossible to see from the outside. Every decision your soulmate made was influenced by information that had been carefully filtered, and every time your name was brought up, another hidden story was added until the truth became almost impossible to recognize. What hurt the most was that your soulmate never stopped feeling your presence. Deep inside, they could never fully explain why their heart refused to let you go, even when every voice around them insisted they should move on. They tried convincing themselves that life had simply chosen a different path, but every attempt only made the emptiness stronger. Even during moments that should have brought happiness, something always felt unfinished, as if an important chapter had been stolen before it could ever be written. Meanwhile, the person responsible watched everything unfold exactly as they had planned, believing the secret would remain buried forever because everyone trusted them too much to ask difficult questions. Don't skip. What no one expected was that secrets have a way of surviving longer than lies. A single unexpected conversation began to unravel everything. Someone asked a simple question that seemed completely harmless, yet the answer exposed details that did not match the story everyone had believed for years. Small inconsistencies started appearing one after another. Old memories returned. Forgotten conversations suddenly made sense. Even your soulmate began remembering moments that had never felt right at the time but now carried an entirely different meaning. The more they reflected on the past, the clearer it became that too many coincidences had happened to be accidents. The same person had always been present whenever plans failed, whenever messages disappeared, whenever misunderstandings grew larger instead of smaller. For the first time, doubt entered the mind of the very people who had defended that individual for years. They realized they had accepted every explanation without ever asking whether it was actually true. And as pressure quietly began building around the one person hiding everything, something inside them finally started to break. They knew they could no longer protect the lie they had created. Because the confession was closer than anyone could possibly imagine. The pressure continued to grow with every passing day, and the person who had spent years controlling the story slowly realized there was no safe place left to hide. Every conversation felt heavier than the last, every family gathering became uncomfortable, and every question they heard sounded as if it already carried the answer. They could see it in your soulmate's eyes as well. The trust that had once protected every lie was beginning to disappear. Your soulmate no longer accepted quick explanations. They started revisiting old memories, reading forgotten messages, and quietly asking people about moments that had never made sense. One by one, the pieces began falling into place. They discovered that plans had been cancelled without their knowledge, messages had been intentionally delayed, and important conversations about you had been twisted before they ever reached them. What they once believed were unfortunate coincidences suddenly revealed a clear pattern. Someone had been quietly directing the entire story from the shadows. The realization was painful because the betrayal had not come from a stranger. It had come from someone the family had trusted completely. Your soulmate could hardly believe that so many years of confusion had been carefully manufactured by a single person whose smile had hidden selfish intentions all along. The deeper they looked, the more impossible it became to deny the truth. Every road that should have led them closer to you had been deliberately blocked. Every misunderstanding had been encouraged instead of resolved. Every opportunity had been quietly taken away before either of you even realized it existed. The person responsible had convinced themselves they were protecting the family, protecting their own plans, or protecting a future they believed they could control, but in reality they had only created pain that spread far beyond anything they had imagined. Don't skip. Everything changed during one quiet evening when the entire family gathered expecting an ordinary conversation. No one imagined it would become the moment that finally ended years of silence. The person who had carried the secret walked into the room looking completely different. Their confidence had disappeared, replaced by exhaustion and regret. Before anyone could ask why they seemed so shaken, they slowly stood in front of everyone and admitted they could no longer live with what they had done. The room became completely silent. No one interrupted. No one moved. Even your soulmate remained frozen, sensing that something life-changing was about to be revealed. With a trembling voice, the confession finally began. They admitted that they had intentionally created distance between you and your soulmate because they believed your connection threatened the future they wanted to control. They confessed to hiding important conversations, influencing family opinions, encouraging misunderstandings, and convincing others that walking away from you was the safest decision. Every lie had seemed small when it was told, but together those lies had changed the course of 2 lives. Tears filled their eyes as they admitted they never expected the truth to survive for so many years. They thought time would erase everything. Instead, guilt had followed them every single day until it became impossible to breathe without remembering what they had done. As those words echoed through the room, every member of the family realized they had unknowingly judged the wrong person all along. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument because everyone understood that nothing could ever return to the way it had been. Yet at that very moment, your soulmate quietly asked one question that no one in the room was prepared to answer. And that single question was about to reveal an even deeper truth hidden beneath the confession itself. Your soulmate remained completely still after hearing the confession, but the silence on their face was not the silence of anger alone. It was the silence of someone whose entire understanding of the past had just collapsed in front of them. For years they had blamed timing, distance, and even themselves for losing you, believing life had simply chosen a different direction. Now every memory returned with a painful new meaning. Every unanswered message, every cancelled meeting, every strange misunderstanding, every moment they wondered why you suddenly seemed distant. None of it had happened naturally. Someone had carefully placed those obstacles between the two of you, believing they could control a love that was never theirs to control. Your soulmate slowly looked around the room, searching every familiar face, trying to understand how such a painful secret had remained hidden for so long. Then, without raising their voice, they asked a single question that instantly changed the atmosphere once again. If you worked so hard to keep us apart, what was the real reason you were so afraid of us finding each other? No one expected that question. Even the person who had confessed lowered their head because they knew the first confession had only revealed half of the truth. The deeper reason had remained buried for years, protected by fear, pride, and regret. For several long moments they could not speak. Tears rolled down their face as they finally admitted that it had never truly been about protecting the family. It had been about protecting a plan they had created long before anyone realized how deeply you and your soulmate cared for each other. They had promised another family that the marriage would happen, believing it would bring respect, influence, and security. As your connection grew stronger, they panicked. Instead of accepting what was real, they convinced themselves they had to separate both of you before anyone discovered how impossible it would become to change your soulmate's heart. Every decision afterward was driven by that fear. Every lie became another desperate attempt to keep the truth from coming to light. Yet the more they interfered, the stronger your unseen bond quietly became, and no amount of manipulation could completely erase what destiny had already written. Don't skip. The room was filled with tears as every family member finally understood the enormous cost of one person's selfish decision. Some felt ashamed for believing the lies without ever asking questions. Others remembered moments when they had unfairly judged you based on stories that had never been true. One by one, they apologized to your soulmate for encouraging them to move on when, deep inside, they had never truly wanted to let you go. Your soulmate listened quietly, but their heart was somewhere else. They were no longer thinking about the lies. They were thinking about you. They wondered how much pain you had silently carried, how many nights you questioned your own worth, and how many times you believed they had willingly chosen another future. That realization broke something inside them. They whispered that if even one honest conversation had happened years earlier, everything could have been different. The person who confessed fell to their knees and admitted they would accept any consequence because they finally understood that no apology could return the years that had been stolen. But before anyone could say another word, an elderly member of the family quietly stood up holding a small envelope that had remained locked away for years. With trembling hands they admitted they had been instructed never to open it unless the truth was finally revealed. Every eye turned toward that envelope as it was carefully placed into your soulmate's hands. No one knew what was inside, but everyone sensed that whatever they were about to read would uncover one final truth that had been waiting for this exact moment. And it would change the future in a way none of them could possibly imagine. The room became so quiet that even the sound of the envelope being opened seemed louder than anyone's heartbeat. Your soulmate carefully unfolded the aging paper, noticing that the handwriting had faded with time but remained perfectly clear. As they began reading, their expression changed almost immediately. The first few lines were enough to leave them completely speechless. It was not a legal document, nor was it another confession. It was a private letter written years earlier by someone who had witnessed everything from the very beginning but had never found the courage to speak. The letter described conversations that had taken place behind closed doors, decisions that had been made without your knowledge, and warnings that had been deliberately ignored. It confirmed that the separation between you and your soulmate had never been caused by a lack of love, distance, or fate. It had been carefully arranged through fear and manipulation. Most heartbreaking of all, the letter revealed that more than once your soulmate had tried to find a way back to you, but each attempt had been quietly blocked before it ever reached you. Calls were discouraged, messages were hidden, meetings were cancelled, and false stories were repeated until everyone believed they were protecting the future. As your soulmate continued reading, tears rolled down their face because they finally understood something that had haunted them for years. You had never abandoned them. You had never stopped caring. You had simply been trapped behind a wall built by someone else's choices. Every painful memory that once seemed like rejection now looked completely different. The weight of guilt settled heavily on every person sitting in that room because they realized how easily they had accepted assumptions instead of searching for the truth. Some quietly covered their faces in shame while others could not stop crying. Even the person who had confessed earlier admitted they had forgotten about the existence of the letter, believing it had been destroyed long ago. But somehow it had survived, waiting patiently until the exact moment when the truth could no longer be denied. Don't skip. When your soulmate reached the final paragraph, their hands began trembling uncontrollably. The writer had ended the letter with one final request: if this letter is ever opened, do not waste another day living inside old lies. Find the person whose heart never truly left yours. Even if they have moved forward, they deserve to hear the truth directly from you, not from anyone else. Those words echoed through the room long after the reading had ended. No one tried to stop your soulmate this time. No one offered another excuse or another opinion. For the first time in years, every member of the family silently agreed that the decision belonged only to the two hearts that had been separated for so long. Your soulmate slowly folded the letter, looked around the room one final time, and quietly said that they refused to lose another day because of someone else's mistake. They admitted that no one could promise what the future would bring, but they also knew they would regret staying silent far more than they feared hearing the truth. As they walked toward the door, something unexpected happened. Their phone vibrated with a notification from an unknown number. There was no name attached to it, only a single sentence that instantly made them stop in their tracks. If you have finally learned the truth. There is one more secret you still don't know about us. The entire room froze once again, because no one had sent that message. Or at least, no one was willing to admit that they had.